Hi, welcome to the presentation on the microeconomic environment. So microeconomic environment is part of the business environment, and wherein we are having this external and internal environment, and the external environment has got two components, namely micro and macro, and we are going to discuss the various major drivers present in the micro environment. One important point to be noted here is that all the strategies to be addressed for the micro environment drivers, they all should be proactive in nature. That means we have to really study the various forces very closely, and we have to respond immediately. We should not wait for the market forces to act. Let us quickly see the various drivers present in the microeconomic environment. First is the customer, then you have the competitor, then you have the market, then you have the supplier, then you have the organization, and finally you have the intermediaries. So let us look after one of the things in detail. First, let us look into the customer. Let us see what GANDHIJI is talking about the customer. A customer is the most important visitor on our premises. He is not dependent on us. We are dependent on him. He is not an interruption in our work. He is the purpose of it. He is not an outsider in our business. He is part of it. We are not doing him a favor by serving him. He is doing us a favor by giving us an opportunity to do this. So, Gandhiji has beautifully outlined how exactly the customer has to be treated, but you can draw your own conclusions. The various companies are operating today's environment. So, first aspect of the customer, all of you know, he is the one who consumes our product or services. So, what is very important for all the organization is to very closely track the customer's taste, preferences, buying habits, because all these aspects are all very dynamic in nature. You cannot take it for granted. The customer taste will remain forever, the buying habits will remain the same forever, not like that. So you have to keep track of it. One of the excellent example you can think about is a Marzi's initiative, because the people in the urban cities, they find it extremely difficult to drive the car because of the traffic congestion. They have to frequently change the gear, clutch, etc., etc. So Maruti has initially brought out a concept called the automatic transmission, but there was not taker for that one because it is costlier and fuel efficiency came down. Then Maruti came with a manual automatic transmission car system, which has got many takers because the capital cost is also not very high, plus there is no change in the fuel consumption. So it has become a runaway success. Today Maruti has introduced this model in all the cars. Even competitors also started copying this particular one. So similarly, we see Amul. Amul has decided to launch about 50 to 60 products in the immediate horizon. Recently, you would have seen cookies coming from Amul, new type of cheeses, new type of butter, whole lot of new products in the pipeline, because Amul is also very closely tracking the consumers' taste, preferences, and buying habits. Coronavirus. In fact, people have become too scared of it, and so they are looking for a contactless delivery. That's why companies like Big Basket and Grofers have gone for a contactless delivery of the various grocery items. So there is a need to address the pain points of customer is also equally important. Today, if you take any emergency patient, particularly a cardiac patient, the first 1 hour is called the golden hour. So if you are able to provide some support during that time, nothing like that, that is the reason Apollo hospitals have introduced air ambulance services to provide the immediate medical support for such type of category of people. The second player we have to see is the competitor. Competitors are nothing but their other business entities that compete for the market share. Suppose you take a Reliance JioPhone. The competitors are basically Airtel and Vodafone. Study of the competitive scenario is very important to understand the following. For example, who is the aggressive competitor? Suppose whoever is in the paint industry, they should know the Asian Paints is the aggressive competitor, because the aggressive competitor can alter the dynamics of the market. Unless you study closely the entire characteristics of the aggressive competitor, you may not be able to survive, you may not be able to grow. Who are the major threats to the company? For example, if we see the biscuits industry, Britannia, at one point of time, Britannia was a major player, but today with the entry of ITC and recently by Amul, has given sleepless nights to Britannias, because they are going to be a major threat to Britannia. So the competition may be direct or indirect. Now, because of that corona threat, you would have seen many people have started enjoying watching the latest movies and all that in Amazon Prime Time, Netflix, and etc. So we really do not know when the lockdown is going to be lifted, whether people will continue to watch here, whether they're going to go into the theater is anybody's guess. Competitors may be of the same size or different. If you see the fan industry or in the cement industry, the competitors are almost the same size. Whereas if you take an Indian automobile industry, Maruti is having a dominant market share of more than 50%, and the other companies like your Mahindra, Tata and Hyundai, they got about some percentage, around 20% or whatever it is. The balanced market share is divided between the large number of global car companies. So the competitors are not of the same size. So that is again an issue to be really carefully looked into. The third is the market. The following aspects of the market have to be dynamically tracked, particularly after the COVID scenario. How exactly the market is going to be? What is the size of the market? Whether the market will continue to grow, whether the market is going to shrink. So these are all the big challenges facing all the organization. So that's one of the important point to be considered. What is the maturity status of the product you are doing? Whether it is an evolving case, whether it's a growing stage, whether it is a maturing stage, or whether it's a declining stage, because it's a very important parameter again. If you take an electric car, they're basically in the evolving phase. If you see the video conferencing tools available or the products available, they're all in the growing stage today. If you see a ceiling fan, it is typically in the maturity phase, trying to slip into the declining, but there are no alternate products have come. That's why still it is in the maturing phase. But if you see a watches are definitely in the declining phase, because recently even they conducted a study. They have found that even the youngsters, they do not find any utilization to use a watch. Watch has lost its identity. So cost structure to handle the major competitor is one of the important points of the market consideration. Today Maruti is dominating basically because of the volume, because of the large service stations set up across the country, having more than 5,200 service stations and all that. So this is giving sleepless cost structure to the competitors who are finding it extremely difficult to match and beat. The price sensitivity and substitution possibilities of the market. A very interesting example one can think about is only the vegetable prices. Because whenever you go and buy a vegetable, you will always look into the price. Depending upon the price you buy this vegetable or some other vegetable. So the price sensitivity vegetables are very important. The substitution possibility is also quite strong there. So the review the existing distribution system. So whenever you want to go for growth, you always have to take a call whether you should grow on your own or whether you should go for the franchise mode. Today with the larger geographies, there is a compulsion to go for franchise mode, even though it may be having some disadvantages. And finally, the scope for technological disruption. So this is a very important issue for all these technologically not so stable industries like fertilizer. With the introduction of drip irrigation, there is a need for water soluble fertilizers. Till such time, the fertilizer industry was not concerned about technology. But now with the introduction of drip, there is a need to go for water soluble fertilizer. Otherwise, the traditional fertilizers are not water soluble in nature, so there are a lot of challenges for them to really look into. The fourth is the supplier. The company has got a large number of suppliers like raw material supplier, power supplier, sub-assembly supplier, fuel supplier, packing supplier, support service supplier, and also outsourcing service supplier. So depending upon the criticality, some may be even a showstopper. For example, if you take raw materials like a cement plant or power plant, they had to be located very close to the raw material source, otherwise they may not be able to run the plant continuously. Similarly, if you see a aluminium plant or caustic soda plant, which are all highly power intensive in nature, 60 to 70% of cost of production is only the power, so they have to have some this one. Either they should have a captive power plant or they should have tie up with a reliable power supplier. Similarly, if you see the automobile, the sub-assembly suppliers are all very, very important. Then only you'll be able to produce quality automobile meeting the various specifications. So the suppliers, we have to see whether they're critical or non-critical, and accordingly you have to take a call. Finally, the organization. So what is an organization? Organization consists of the owners of the organization. So depending upon whether it's a startup or a traditional organization, it will have people like individuals, owners, or financial institutions, or venture capitalists, or angel funds. Then the organization will have a board of directors like independent directors, nominee directors and all that. Today government policies and government's expectation from all these independent and nominee directors are all quite high. The third is the management staff. They are all nothing but the top management staff or middle management staff and lower management staff. They are all non-unionized people. The fourth is all the unionized staff, consisting of, they may be from different unions and they may be politically affiliated union or maybe a non-politically affiliated union. Then you have a contract staff, the consultants and subject specialists. So then finally you have the outsourcing team. So there may be multiple service providers, they all will come with their own team. And finally you have the intermediaries. So who are the intermediaries? Basically between the producer and consumer, there may be one or more number of intermediaries depending upon the product you're producing, depending upon the industry you're there. Normally in an industrial product, the number of intermediaries are almost nil. In a consumer product, the number of intermediaries are all more in nature. Let us take a very typical example of an AC. If you are going to buy an window AC, the number of intermediaries between the producer and consumer will be more. If you are going to go for a AC plant for your factory, the company will be directly supplying to you. There will not be an intermediary at all. So with this, I think we have seen all the major forces playing in the micro environment. I hope you really enjoyed the presentation. Hope you found it quite useful. Thank you once again for your patient listening.